Florida. Yes, how you all doing? Hope you all having a wonderful day wherever you are, morning, noon, or night. Yes, I'm just relaxing. I was listening to some gospel and just had my dinner and while having dinner I was watching YouTube and then the immigration lawyer came up and I found it interesting talking about marriage interview, so I thought I would share it. So let's listen, right? Yes, let's listen. Quite interesting. Hold on, let me see. Let me see if I can get back to it. Let me get back to it. Yeah. Uh, oh, I should get the so I don't have to hold both phones in my hand. Hold on. People opening up back the other phone. Yeah. Opening up back the other phone. Why did it shut off? Just give me a moment. Um, trying to open up the phone. Um, Restarting. Uh, let's see. Yeah, so I was watching and I find it interesting, yeah. So I said, let's listen. Let's listen. Come on, Android. Give me a moment, people. Oh, jeez. Everything was going perfect and no. And now, let's see. The phone want to restart. Oh, gee. The devil is a liar, right? Oh, so you're watching it and then, hold on. Yeah, so, a lot of people, get married for the wrong reasons. I guess I could say, it's in my situation to where, married. Oh my God. Why is this phone choose to give problem now? Me decide to use it. I haven't used it since, but I was watching it a while ago. Oh my God. Anyway, you see, the devil is a lie. The phone decided to start acting up. When I decided to just watch this thing, right? All right. Let me try one more time. Um, pretty good. Unlock. Okay. All right. Hopefully it's okay now. Hopefully it's okay now. Yeah, okay, it's getting on. Give me a moment, people. Give me a moment. I'm here relaxing. So then this morning I came from work. Have I been doing? Yeah. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. Um, okay. Renewing green card. Okay, marriage green card. All right, let's watch this one. Marriage green card interview. All right, let's listen to this.
I stopped taking Ozempic, and here is why. It may surprise you, but the best way to lose weight in 2020. Neither of the officers had actually looked at any.
This
This month we have about 20.
This lawyer is Darian, immigration law. All right, marriage green card interview exposed. What really happens? Okay, so let's listen to this.
Marriage-based green card interviews scheduled with USCIS. And these are all interviews that resulted from applications which were filed at the end of December and beginning of January in New York. We also have other applications pending around the country because we do these marriage-based green cards nationwide, but the processing times on those vary. So I'm just focusing on the New York ones. In the last 2 days, I attended 2 of the interviews with my clients because they were just panicking and they really wanted me to go, even though I tried to convince them that it's unnecessary and that they are prepared. But anyway, so I attended the interviews, and this video is going to be about what the interviews entailed, what questions were asked, what was the style of the officer. You know, a lot of people ask me these questions, so I thought I would make a video specifically on this topic. When you attend a marriage-based adjustment of status interview with USCIS, you and your US citizen or permanent resident spouse must attend the interview together. This video actually focuses on when your spouse is a US citizen. When they're a permanent resident, it's not always clear that you can apply for adjustment of status, so don't take away from this video that, oh, I can apply for adjustment of status because my spouse is a permanent resident. Not always true. That's a complicated discussion that I've talked about in other videos where I go through the difference between preference category and immediate relative category immigration petitions. Okay, so you're attending the interview with your U.S. citizen spouse. You check in with USCIS, whatever address your interview notice says. The ones I attended were at 26 Federal Plaza. It says 26 Federal Plaza 7-700. That means it's on the 7th floor, room 700. When you arrive, you have to check in at the window. Basically, wait in line. And when you get to the window, you have to submit your interview appointment notice, and then they basically check you in. They will ask the green card applicant to provide their fingerprints using their left index finger on the fingerprint scanner and then their right index finger, and they'll also take a photograph of the applicant. They'll usually write a number on your interview notice and tell you to take a seat by like door 1 or door 2. The number we got yesterday was actually J7. So and they didn't tell us exactly which door to sit next to. They said they'll just call it over the loudspeaker. We ended up waiting for around 2 hours before I asked to speak with a supervisor, because usually the interviews are done within 30 to 60 minutes of you checking in. Supervisor helped me address the issue, and it turns out the person who had signed us in hadn't done it properly. So they directed us to a different room on the same floor. It was room 108. And when we got there, within about 45 minutes, the USCIS officer asked us to follow her to attend the interview. So when we got to the interview room, it was probably like a 10 by 10 foot cubicle. The immigration officer asked me to take the far seat. There were basically 3 chairs right next to each other, and the immigration officer was across the desk from us. I sat in the far chair, and then the middle chair was for the U.S. citizen petitioner, and the chair closest to the door was for the immigrant spouse. The immigration officer asked us all for identification, and then asked the petitioner and the beneficiary, the green card applicant, to stand up, raise their right hands, and to swear that everything they're going to say is the truth. This specific ISO, or Immigration Service Officer, indicated that she wanted to start by determining that the marriage was in good faith. So that's the I-130 petition, and then would move on to the I-485, which is the green card application. 90% of the interview was to determine that the marriage was in good faith, and we'll talk about the exact questions. I actually wrote down all the questions she asked. She was going kind of quickly, so I did the best I could. So the first thing she asked for was for a copy of the lease agreement. We had already submitted like 3 years of lease agreements, but she had not looked at what we submitted, which actually is what happened the day before when I attended another immigration interview as well. I attended two in a row, like 2 days in a row. Neither of the officers had actually looked at any of the evidence that we had submitted. And if they had looked at the evidence, it would have really helped the interview proceed more quickly, because there was a ton of evidence that both of these marriages were in good faith. So she asked for a copy of the lease agreement. We indicated that it was already submitted, but we had brought a copy anyway, and my client just handed them right up. The officer was appreciative and then moved right into the questions. So she basically said, okay, these questions are for you, the U.S. citizen petitioner. As I ask these questions, please do not look at your spouse. Do not nudge each other. Don't engage in like banter or small talk. Just please try to directly answer the questions so that we can get through this as quickly as possible. And so the first thing she did was ask, tell me about your spouse's parents. What are their names? And she knew the name of the spouse's mother, but not the father, because the father was not in the picture. He wasn't even listed on the spouse's birth certificate. The next question was, who are the people who attended your wedding ceremony? And so she answered the question. In this situation, there was like 29 people who attended. It was a small ceremony, and she even indicated that they had hit like the limit for the civil town ceremony. Then they asked, what is your spouse's best friend's name? Because right before she had mentioned that her spouse's best friend was in attendance at the wedding, so the immigration officer asked some questions about the spouse's friends to see what she could tell her. Next question, which I hadn't heard before, was how did you arrive at your wedding? And turns out that one of their parents had driven them to the wedding. So easy question, easy answer. I think the immigration officer was just looking for that deer in headlights look when you've been like caught, and nothing like that happened because it was a good faith marriage, so nothing to lie or hide about. By the way, there were several questions where neither spouse knew the answer, and they just said, I don't know, and that's okay. The next question was, what is your apartment number? And after that, the immigration officer asked, when did you guys move in together? And how much is the rent? And at this point, the immigration officer actually started alternating between the spouses to ask the immigrant spouse some of these questions as well. But actually, the majority of the questions were for the U.S. citizen petitioner. And then after the immigration officer asked about the rent, she asked which utilities are included in the rent, what do you pay for separately aside from the rent? And then asked the immigrant spouse, what kind of car does your spouse drive? The next question was, do you share any joint bank accounts? If so, with which bank? Did you bring those bank account statements? And then we paused the questions for a second and handed up all the additional bank account statements from the last few months since we submitted the application. She wanted to see the updated statements and actually asked a few questions about the transactions that were on the statements. Who's in charge of paying for the optimum bill? Who's in charge of paying for rent? Who manages your bank account? Do you use your bank account for any other expenses? And asked the U.S. citizen petitioner to just explain what the purpose of that bank account was, which expenses they pay for, because earlier in the interview, the U.S. citizen petitioner had indicated that we really just use this bank account for joint expenses. Which insurance plan do you guys share? And then asked the immigrant spouse, how much does your U.S. citizen petitioner pay each month for your health insurance? Because from the prior question, it became clear that the U.S. citizen petitioner added the immigrant spouse on her employer's insurance plan. So asked the immigrant spouse, how much does your spouse pay each month towards your health insurance? And the answer was, I don't know, which is a reasonable answer. I wouldn't know that either. Right after that question, this was pretty quick, by the way. This whole thing took like 10 minutes. After that, the immigration officer said, okay, the I-130 portion of this is over. Now, these questions are going to be for the beneficiary, the immigrant spouse, just to make sure you're eligible for permanent residence. And then this actually happened during both of my interviews. The day before as well, the immigration officer divided it up clearly into an I-130 portion and then an I-485 portion. And the I-485 portions were almost identical for both interviews. The immigration officer basically just asked a few of the questions from the yes or no portion of the interview. So the first few questions on the yes or no portion, like, have you ever been denied a visa? Have you ever violated the terms or conditions of your non-immigrant status, which were for both of my spouses was yes. Have you ever worked without authorization? For both of them, it was yes. And so they asked the first like 5 questions from the yes or no section of the green card application, the I-485 application, and then they just kind of skipped around. Have you ever engaged in prostitution? Have you ever engaged in genocide? Like the ridiculous questions on the I-485 application. The officers didn't go through all of the questions, but they like randomly picked like 10 of them. And the answers to all of those were no. The only yes answers were, have you worked without authorization? Have you ever violated the terms or conditions of your non-immigrant status, which they both had overstayed tourist visas, so the answers to those were yes. And one of them actually answered yes to the question, have you ever been denied a visa before? Because he actually had to apply for a tourist visa multiple times before he got one to enter the United States. At the end of the interview, by the way, after the I-485 portion, the immigration officer made a couple notes and then asked the green card applicant to just sign an iPad saying like, are these changes or corrections accurate? And so they signed it, it was submitted, good to go. And then the immigration officer handed them this notice, which says, notice of interview results. You have just completed your interview. USCIS is unable to complete your case at this time. Your case is being continued until a final decision can be made. Please see below for further explanation. And then there's a box checked under the reason for continuance section that says your case is being held for review. At this time, USCIS does not require any further information or documents from you. Should further information or documents be required, you will receive a notice in the mail. We may also schedule you for another interview. You will receive a notice in the mail. Otherwise, a final decision will be mailed once your case is complete. So all of my cases who attended interviews in the last few days received this notice, and all of them 24 hours later logged into their USCIS case status portal and saw that the I-130s and I-485s were approved. So it's quite normal at the end of the interview for the immigration officer to say, we can't give you a final decision right now. In both cases, I asked the officer, how did they do? How did my clients do while we were walking out in the hallway? And in both cases, they said they did good or they did fine. So don't panic if the immigration officer gives you a notice saying a final decision cannot be made. That actually probably happens to 80 or 90% of applicants. They just need a little bit of time to review your application and make sure all the paperwork's in, your medical exam is good, your I-94 shows a legal entry into the United States, and they probably check a few other things that I don't even know about. But within 24 hours, both applications got approved. There's one final note I'd like to make before I close out this video. I don't think it's really that important for most people to have an immigration attorney attend the interview. The 2 clients with whom I attended interviews this week were really nervous. They had some life circumstances that just made them really nervous about immigration changes. And so they wanted me to attend the interviews, and they know I do a lot of marriage-based green card applications. And really, they knew I didn't need to go, but they just wanted to feel more comfortable. If the immigration officer did anything inappropriate, they wanted me to be there to request to speak with the supervisor, since I know how the interview is supposed to go. In both cases, they probably wasted their money by hiring me to attend the interview, and I told them that in advance. What I think is very important is to prepare with your attorney before you attend the interview. The main thing that I do with people before an interview is create a list of every document that they need to bring to the interview and prepare how to answer questions that you don't know the answer to. How to say, I don't know, or I don't remember, or I don't understand the question. How do you say that in a way that's not going to create problems? That's basically what I practice with people. To be honest, in most cases, interview prep takes 45 minutes or less, and people are good to go. So just keep that in mind before you pay like an exorbitant fee for an immigration attorney to attend your interview. Now, with that said, if your case is not straightforward, if you did not enter with like a standard I-94 record of entry, if you have any severe criminal history that might be problematic, or anything else that's out of the ordinary, speak with an attorney to determine whether or not it's a good idea for them to attend with you, and hopefully they're honest enough to give you a legitimate answer. If you're going through the marriage-based green card process yourself and you need an attorney to assist you or to prepare with you before the interview, you could always schedule a consultation with me. My name is Puyan Darian. I'm an immigration attorney. I focus on marriage-based green cards throughout the entire United States. It's not just limited to New York. So if you want someone who can handle the whole process from start to finish, I'm your guy. You can find my information in the video description below, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.
Okay, people. Yes, so that's one section regarding the immigration marriage green card interview. Very interesting, right? Comment if you are in that situation and you find this interesting, right? Do comment. I'd appreciate to hear from you. Yes. So this lady said, she regarding to the lawyer, she asked, she responding in the comment section, she said, I did my interview in April. I didn't use a lawyer. We went to the interview. The lady was very nice. All was okay, and we got approved the next day. All right, that's a good one. 2 replies. Let me see the 2 replies from that. Were you and your wife interviewed separately? Someone asking. And the next person, what type of question did she ask? And how did you answer? Do you think a lawyer is generally necessary? That's somebody asking another question. Okay. Let me see this other one now. Hi, sir. After my interview finished, the officer said the USCIS will notify me within 120 days. And the interview happened 7th of May. I didn't get any update yet from USCIS. So what time might I get an update from USCIS? This other question, it's question regarding the interview, the marriage, okay, green card. Thank you so much for making this video. Our interview is next Friday, and we were thinking about hiring an attorney because we went through the process with an agency, but they do not represent you. I called several law firms and they were all crazy expensive. Wow. I feel more confident now because of your video. Also, my marriage is legitimate. My background is clean and I entered the country legally. Thank you. Okay, well, I can talk about this immigration thing because I am married, yes, and I was filing for my husband, really. But all I can say about it is that he messed it up. So literally, he ended up on his own and had to do it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Yes. So it's immigration out of my hand. All right. So the next question is, what does it mean if our status says the case is administratively closed? We went for the interview last year and they basically said all we need was to write down our story and send it. Our interview was essentially waived, but the case is still in interview status with a note saying administratively closed. That's interesting, right? All right. Here's another question. Do immigration officers treat applicants with lawyers differently than those who does not have lawyers? Another question. How much money is it to get someone to accompany you in an interview like a range? And the lawyer replies, let's see what the lawyer said. Okay, I'm using my, oops. See, I'm using my other phone. Oh, well, hold on. We got messed up. We got messed up. Let me get back to it. All right, we got messed up. I'm trying to get back into it. The phone fell, so let's get back into it. The devil is a liar, right? You know, when we talk about what we're talking about right now, it's so messed up. Let me try to get back into it, people. All right, so yeah, so that's very interesting. The phone fell and everything messed up. Okay, yes, so we're back. We're back. We are back. So we're talking about immigration and marriage.
This month, we have about 20 marriage.
All right. So those were the questions. Let me see. Green card interview. And we're talking the lawyer Darian immigration law.
Find big deals at Best Buy this Memorial Day.
Memorial Day is Monday, people.
I want to answer some common questions.
Navigating a marriage-based green card interview. Tips and expectations. All right, so let's listen to this one. Same lawyer, Darian immigration law. Yes, you can check him out on YouTube. Let's say navigating the marriage-based green card interview. Tips and expectations. All right, let's listen to this.
I receive from marriage-based green card applicants because I do a lot of these. So if you need assistance, feel free to reach out. And these questions are really about just the timeline, how to best prepare your application, and what to expect throughout the process. So I'm going to try to take you from the perspective of someone who knows almost nothing about marriage-based green card applications to just tell you a lot of the stuff that we would go through during an initial consultation if you wanted to speak with me individually. So one of the first things I like to ask people when I'm consulting with them is how they met, when they started living together, when they opened a joint bank account, when they got married, how'd they make those decisions, questions about each other's families. Have you been divorced before? Have you petitioned for other immigrants before? Because that is relevant at the interview. If you've petitioned for more people before, let's say you've been married 3 times.
All right, he's talking about the marriage interview and what they're gonna ask and all that. You know, I don't know what my husband would have answered regarding any of those because, to be honest, from we're married, we haven't really even lived together, and it's 4 years. We're married 4 years and we haven't lived together. So, which at the end of the day, I said it make no sense, really, you know. But before, like 2 years ago, you know, you live in another state, work in another state, and eventually when I'm filing for him, and then, you know, the filing went through like we reached over a year, a year. It took 1 whole year after I put in application for him. It took 1 year before I hear from immigration again. I put in the application like the November, the December I got an answer regarding receipt and thing. And the February I got another letter from them, immigration, that is being prepared. I didn't get another letter from them until 1 year, one whole year, and he was here. Yeah, see, I'm talking about immigration and marriage. Let me talk about it. Mine. My husband was here. He lives in Chicago, work in Chicago, right? And we got married, and I don't even know if that could call a marriage, right? So I put in the paper, and each time him keep asking, "What if the paper not coming through and all this not coming through?" I have no patience. We have nothing together, right? Nothing to show, and people, it's we've been together like what, 16 years or like 15 years. Presently, it would be 19 years. Honestly, it would be 19 years, but we married 4 years ago, right? And so it's not on my side. I don't know. Probably on his side, it would have been just to get a green card. But on my side, it's totally different. It's really a love relationship. And we have a child or daughter, 17. So we have been together. It's no, on my side, it wouldn't be like trying to get a green card, right? But I'm of the impression now that he was just trying to get a green card because, you know, you married. I'm looking about the green card, and one day you're just gonna get up and say, "Oh, the marriage is over." He was here when the green when I got the letter from immigration saying they needed another piece of document. He was here. And like 2, 3 days after, he's gonna get in a fits and then saying he's not staying, he's going, and he's whatever. Okay, yeah. He said he's going and marriage over and all of that. So he told me and he left, and then I didn't hear from him, didn't send nothing for me like for 2 months. So what did I do? I just stopped the papers. Simple. And that's the honest truth. I stopped the papers. So eventually, at the end of the day, and when I stopped the paper, within 2 weeks, immigration wrote me back. When I sent them a letter to stop the paper, the documents, within 2 weeks, I hear from them, and they say, "Okay, this is it, final. I can't reopen it." So he did it himself, and to this point, him still don't get through. It was like 1 year after I did the paper, and the letter came from immigration, and he was here in Florida the day when the letter came, and he saw it. So it's not that I wasn't looking about his papers. And a couple of days after, him get pissed off, but the fact is him having reasons, right? How can you looking about your paper and you're gonna upset the person who is giving you the papers? And then you're gonna walk out, pack your clothes, pack everything, and say you leave and you're not coming back. Some people say I was wrong. I shouldn't stop it, but I did. Okay, so him left on his own, and I I I know he get his card, the social, but that's all him get to the point, right? And that is like 2 years now. I'm looking after it. So you see, just because you can't wait, it takes actually 2 years to come true. It doesn't just come like that. You think you just pick up and get your paper like that? No. You have to have patience. Hold on, let me get back to this. Yeah, so that is my immigration thing with my husband. Yeah, so to this point, I just say, you know what? Honestly to God, I better we divorce because we don't live together. You don't we're not doing nothing together. It doesn't make sense, and that's the honest truth. I'm gonna put it out in the world right now, so people can say what they want to say, because at the end of the day, he's gonna give a different story. Watch here, the thing all become a chat and go, okay, let's get back to the green card thing. Let's
At the
listen.
interview, if you've petitioned for more people before, let's say you've been married 3 times, including this marriage, and both prior times you petitioned for your immigrant spouse and got them green cards, there's going to be some additional scrutiny when you attend the interview to make sure that this isn't a fraudulent marriage just to give your current spouse a green card as well. After we go through some of these particulars of the specific marriage, I like to explain what the timeline generally looks like. So once we file everything with USCIS, which takes us around 2 weeks to prepare all the paperwork and package, finalize it, perfect it, and then I'll submit everything to USCIS. One of the first things we receive about 2 to 3 weeks later is some receipt notices in the mail. Now, before this, you'll receive these notices electronically if you have an online USCIS account, which is not required. But if you don't, you'll receive some notices in the mail, one for the family petition, one for the green card application, and optionally one for a work permit and one for advance parole, which is permission to travel internationally. And at the same time, simultaneously, my office will also receive these notices in the mail. So if for some reason you don't receive something, I'll receive it, and then we'll give you a call to tell you what you need to do. About a month later, you'll be scheduled for a biometrics appointment notice. This is going to be only for the immigrant spouse, the person who's applying for permanent residence. The notice is going to basically say you need to show up at this place at this time, bring some government ID, and bring this notice with you. And you just show up, it's like 5 minutes, they take your picture, they take your fingerprints, and then they use that picture on your eventual work permit and down the road, your green card application. After the biometrics notice, we might receive a request for evidence if there was something defective in the case. For example, there was an issue with your birth certificate and we need to get a new one, or a tax document was defective, or there was some other problem with your affidavit of support. These are probably the most common issues I see. And sometimes, by the way, it's not the applicant's fault. If you used an attorney or not, it's not necessarily the attorney's fault. USCIS makes a lot of mistakes with the affidavit of support. It's one of the most common reasons for which a request for evidence is issued. And sometimes we just resubmit everything we previously submitted without making any changes, and it's good to go. But for most people, I would say there is no request for evidence, at least the majority of my cases that we prepare. In which case, you might not hear anything back from USCIS for several months. And then the next thing that will happen is you'll get an interview appointment notice, which is typically issued 3 to 6 weeks before the actual interview. Once you receive the interview appointment notice, if you're one of my clients anyway, we schedule an appointment for me to meet with you guys to practice for the interview. We're going to create a list of documents you need to bring to the interview, any updated evidence of your marriage you need to bring, and how to answer questions that you might not know the answer to, like what structure to use when you're telling USCIS that you don't know the answer, or you don't remember, or you're very nervous, like how exactly to best say these things. And then after the interview, what your expectations should be. I just did another video on this, but I'll just repeat it here in this short snippet. After the interview, it's quite common for you to receive a notice that says that a decision cannot be made right then and there, and that they need 120 days to make the decision.
Watch what corn does to your brain.
The fastest solution to flush brain toxins and reverse the early signs of memory loss.
Then and there, and that they need 120 days to make the decision. This isn't a bad thing. It doesn't mean that your application is being investigated, or that they suspect fraud, or there's something problematic. In fact, I would say 80 to 90% of people get this notice, and then the following business day, the I-130 and the I-485 applications get approved. Once the I-485, the green card application, is approved, typically within 2 to 4 weeks, you receive the green card in the mail. You can check the case status. It's going to say like your case was approved, to we're going to now produce your card, to your card has been printed and is now being shipped to you, and here's the tracking number. You can check it or just wait 2 to 4 weeks. It'll arrive whether you check it or not. If for some reason it doesn't arrive, you would need to make a service request. That's pretty rare. I've had that happen like twice in like our last 1,000 green card applications, and usually it's like a postal service issue where they deliver it to the wrong place, it gets sent back, and then you need to request it again from USCIS. After I explain this process, the next question I get from people is, how long does this process take? First of all, I like to say that the process It's going to take 12 to 18 months. But in reality, I don't actually expect it to take that long. I'm just anticipating a lot of slowdowns now that everyone is being scheduled for an interview and the Trump administration is literally making USCIS officers' lives hell, which is causing like 30% of them to quit and massive backlogs for all the other ones. I just did a video about how USCIS processing times are literally about to double, straight from the mouth of a ISO, one of the service officers who does these interviews, posted something on Reddit explaining exactly what their experience is right now and how it's really miserable to be one of these immigration officers and how the government is intentionally trying to slow things down. But I will say, I submitted many of these applications, like probably more than 40 at the end of December to the beginning of January alone. And right now, in the last few weeks, all of these people have been getting interviewed and half of them already have their green cards, like as of the filming of this video in the middle of May. So, 5 months is what I saw, but the backlog hadn't started yet. I filed all these before Trump became president and began slowing things down with USCIS. So I would not be surprised at all if the ones that I'm filing in May take twice as long, 10 months, but hopefully not. I'm hoping that most of the ones we file like in the middle of 2025 are going to get approved in less than a year, but I don't know and nobody knows the answer to that question. Another question I regularly receive is, can I get deported while my green card application is pending? And the answer is you can, but it's very unlikely. Usually speaking, when someone has an adjustment of status application pending, ICE officers back off because they see that you are in the process of legalizing your status. There have been some notable exceptions. There was that news article about the USCIS working with ICE officers at this Florida, I think Miami field office where they detained 3 people who showed up for their USCIS interview. I believe one of them was a visa overstay, which was the shocking one. Another one entered without inspection, and I don't remember about the third one. The visa overstay one, I wonder if there was something extraordinary about that situation, like maybe they had a criminal history that caused ICE to target them. I honestly don't know what the deal was, but I've never seen anything like that happen in other USCIS field offices. Nothing like that has ever happened to one of my clients. Knock on wood. This is wood. But generally speaking, once you have an adjustment of status application pending, I believe it offers some level of protection. I've even spoken to ICE officers before that have told me they want to see that you have something pending. If you're just here out of status or completely illegally with nothing pending, then you are fair game for them to target you. Another side note, let's say you have an adjustment of status application pending and immigration officers give you a notice to appear in immigration court to begin your deportation proceedings. Adjustment of status is also a defense from removal. So when you show up to court and the judge asks you what defenses will you be seeking from removal, the response can be adjustment of status through an immediate relative family petition. As long as you entered legally, there's been no major issues that make you inadmissible, and you have an immediate relative family member like a U.S. citizen spouse or a U.S. citizen son or daughter who's over the age of 21, you should be eligible for adjustment of status as a defense, as a remedy from deportation as well. And I believe that's also a big part of the reason why historically ICE and enforcement and removal operations, ERO, doesn't target people who have an adjustment of status application pending. Whether that continues to be the case is yet to be seen, but at least
Hi,
now, in May
Roger. Yes, I'm back.
2025,
I'm
I
listening
believe
to
this to be true.
immigration.
For marriage-based adjustment of status
Welcome back,
applications,
Rogers.
it's important to submit as much evidence as possible in the beginning of the process when you file your package with USCIS.
Welcome,
When I
welcome,
prepare these
Kenya.
packages and I submit
Welcome.
them out, I want to include as much evidence that they are in a good faith marriage as possible along with the application. Because if we don't, if we just submit a couple photographs and like the marriage certificate, there's a good chance that before the interview is scheduled, you will receive a request for evidence indicating that the I-130 doesn't have enough evidence that it's a bona fide marriage. And any request for evidence, or even worse, a notice of intent to deny, will cause major delays in the processing of your case. And at that point, you're going to just have to mail in way more evidence to even get to the interview. If you submit enough evidence up front, Once you get to the interview, you need to bring way more stuff. So the general rule is everything that you submitted a copy of, for example, your marriage certificate, birth certificate, spouses, proof of U.S. citizenship, whether it's a U.S. birth certificate, U.S. passport, or certificate of naturalization, you submitted copies of all that stuff. So you need to now bring the original and a photocopy to the interview. And then for all of the evidence, such as like bank accounts, lease agreements,
No, it's
joint
not cold. It's hot.
insurance,
Very hot
correspondence between the
here in
spouses,
Florida.
evidence of travel, photographs, all that stuff. Anything that you submitted, bring an original if an original exists, like if there is an original lease agreement, which is rare, bring that. If there are original cards like congratulating you, bring those in a photocopy. And you have to bring updated versions. So bring the original, bring a photocopy, and if available, bring an updated version of it. So bank accounts, you're going to bring updated versions, lease agreements, maybe health insurance cards, all the stuff that we submitted. We go through it to make sure that you bring the original, a
You see,
photocopy,
those are
and
all the
if there's an
stuff they're gonna
updated
need
version, you bring that as well.
for the
And
marriage
for a lot of things,
interview.
there is no original, but the few things I did mention are mandatory. And that also includes divorce certificates if either spouse has been divorced before. If you're new to my channel, last week I posted a pretty good video on exactly what you can expect at the green card interview. So check out that video. A lot of people who are going through this process really appreciated it and said it was good stuff. I included questions that are directly from an immigration officer that I wrote down during an interview so that I could just share what my experience was like, really to help calm people down who are like
Roger,
freaking out about this process because
I'm listening to navigating the marriage-based green card interview here in the US. Yeah, so that's what I'm playing right now. Is it a T? It's my phone. It's on the phone. I'm using another phone. Yeah.
what I tell everyone is if the marriage is real and you document it and you practice with a lawyer on how to answer questions that you don't know the answer to, how to actually tell the officer you don't know the answer to that, you're going to be fine at the interview. You're not going to be separated at your first interview. You will only be separated if they suspect fraud. And that won't be at the first interview. That'll be a second interview scheduled pretty far out in the future. And that's called a Stokes interview. In all the cases I've done, I've had that happen like twice in my entire life. And that is also because I only accept cases that I believe are good faith marriages. So if you're in a good faith marriage and you've prepared and done your homework, you're probably good to go and you don't need to worry that much. If you're really nervous, prepare with a lawyer before you attend your interview. A question I
very
regularly
interesting,
receive
eh?
is, does a lawyer need to go with me to the interview? I'm really nervous. Can a lawyer go with me? Sure, a lawyer can go with you. I mean, lawyers will do whatever you want if you pay them enough. But I think for most people, it's a waste of money to bring the lawyer with you to an interview. It's important to prepare with the lawyer before
Did
the
you
interview
thumbs
to
up,
know which
Roger?
documents to bring and know how to answer certain questions that you might not
Would you
know
like
the
a
answer to.
big
That's
live?
really what I practice with people before the interview. And really, like for most people,
No,
45 minutes
because
is
I
all it
am
takes to go through the list of
copywriting.
documents,
No, I
answer
don't think so.
questions,
I
get
did
them
it
prepared,
before.
and we
And
have
people
good
do it.
outcomes
No,
by doing it that way. If
and
you
I'm
guys
talking
have
in
any
between,
specific
so I
questions, you
think
could always
it's
schedule a
fine.
consultation directly with me. I would love to talk to you
Yeah.
about your case if you have any specific questions, or if you need a lawyer to represent you, I could do that as
You
well.
won't forget.
If you're
Okay,
new to my
appreciate
channel
it.
and you're
Yeah.
interested in more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. I try
You
to
have
put
a
out a
channel
few
too,
videos
do
each
you?
week, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.
Okay, so that's one part of navigating the marriage-based green card. All right, I think all right, I'm gonna continue with the marriage-based green card. Oh yes, you do. All right, I'm gonna check it out. All right. If I didn't, I'm gonna check out your. I'm gonna check out your channel later on. All right, so we're gonna listen to this section now. Biggest green card update. Yeah, biggest green card update. Well, yeah, once you're interjecting it, you don't play it out just the person's video, then you really don't have a problem. Yeah, you know, and I find it interesting.
One of the
People
biggest
need
changes that's taken
information.
place so far under the
Let's
Trump
listen to
administration
this.
for marriage-based green card applicants doing the adjustment of status process within the United States is that every case is being scheduled for an interview, which is a big contrast from how things were operating just a year ago, where if you had a ton of evidence that your marriage was in good faith, they could waive the interview and you wouldn't need to show up. You would just get an approval
Yeah.
notice and your green card in the mail, which was
Oh,
pretty
change
amazing
up.
for a lot of people. So now that every case is being scheduled for an interview, all of my clients, once it gets to the interview stage, once we get the interview notice that says like your interview is
So
scheduled,
now they're saying last year, before Trump came in, you didn't have to go for an interview for the marriage. But now Trump in power, now Trump take over, you have to go for interview. Yes. So that's what they're saying. Is it a TV planner? Okay, I understand. Will that not give you copywriting? Yes, I did. I won't forget. Let me see.
stage, once we get the interview notice
So
that
this
says like your
is
interview is scheduled 6 weeks.
this is biggest green card update. Marriage interviews are now required for everyone. This is lawyer Darian Immigration Law. Okay.
Weeks from now, and by the
YouTube.
way, one of those notices is in front of me. We will meet to prepare for the interview. And so, what I'm going to be talking about today is how to prepare for
When
your
did you start your
marriage-based
channel?
adjustment of status interview. Let's
You
start
don't
with
have
some
my channel
preliminary
about
information.
6 years
So,
now,
generally
5, 6
speaking, you'll get
years.
your interview
But
appointment notice.
I
this
started
thing,
like 3 years
about
ago.
6 weeks before your interview is
Yeah.
actually scheduled, and it'll basically say you and your
You
spouse
can
need
check
to
out my
appear together. It'll
previous
say the date and time of the
videos,
interview
scroll way back
and what you should
and see
generally
how I
bring.
began.
But the notice isn't that great at explaining what you need to bring, and it is worth speaking with an attorney before you attend the interview if you have any questions or there's confusion. So the
Keep
first
it
thing
up.
that you
Thank
should understand
you.
is 99% of interviews will be a joint interview where it's one immigration officer and the two spouses together in an interview. You won't be separated during the initial interview. Now, if that interview doesn't go well and the immigration officer suspects that the marriage is not in good faith and it's fake merely for an immigration benefit, what will happen is they'll schedule a second interview and they'll wait like a year, and then
I
they'll
will check
schedule a
out
second
tomorrow.
interview
Okay.
where they will do a Stokes interview where they will separate the
I'm here
spouses
relaxing
and ask you the same like 100
and
to
listening,
200 questions, looking for major differences in your responses. And it'll be somewhat hostile. It'll be with the USCIS fraud department where they are used to dealing with fake marriages. You definitely don't want that. So be sure to watch the rest of this video to help you avoid the chances of that happening. By the way, if you're going through this process and you need an attorney to consult with, just to strategize, or to handle your whole case from start to
Time
finish,
is
you can always reach
4:03
out directly to
p.m.
me. My information is in the video description below so that you could schedule a consultation. Okay, so when you apply for adjustment of status, what you want to do is submit as much evidence that you're in a good faith marriage with the rest of your applications. That's your I-130, your I-485, the I-864 medical examination, and possibly your I-765 for employment authorization and I-131 for travel documentation. So you're going to submit all of these forms simultaneously with all of the evidence that you're in a good faith marriage. Photographs, bank accounts, car insurance, health insurance, life insurance, evidence of travel together, joint utilities.
That's what I told my
phone
husband.
bills,
We have
proof
to do
you're
all of
living
those things together, and him just
driver's
couldn't get it in
licenses
his
listing the
head.
same
Well,
address,
I guess he
and
wasn't
tons of other stuff that
interested.
might be unique to your personal relationship. Now, if you guys just got married and just started living together, you might not have most of this stuff. But, months down the road, when it's time for your interview, by then, you might now have many of these documents, especially since now your spouse should have a social security number and employment authorization card, which might help you guys open like a joint bank account. It might help you put your immigrant spouse on your joint health insurance. and just, really establish your lives together and get documents to prove that you're sharing your lives together. Once it's time for the interview, you want to look at everything you previously submitted to USCIS with your initial adjustment of status filing.
No, it's not
Everything
huge.
you
It's
submitted,
small.
with the exception of
It's
like your
really
medical
small. It look
exam,
huge, but
your
it's
passport
small.
style photographs, and maybe a check or
Yeah.
money order made payable to the Department of Homeland Security. Everything else should have been a photocopy. So the first thing to keep in mind is one of the purposes of the interview is to verify the authenticity of these documents. So you need to now bring all of the originals. And any document that you bring an original of, you should also bring another photocopy to the interview. So birth certificates for the immigrant spouse, and if you guys have any kids together, that's amazing evidence that you're in a good faith marriage. Bring the kids' original birth certificates and a photocopy. Marriage certificates, proof that your petitioning spouse is a U.S. citizen. That could be a certificate of naturalization or an original U.S. birth certificate
Yes,
or
I
a U.S.
am
passport, original
Jamaican by
passport.
birth.
So
There goes. Yes, I am. Oh, all right. Let me get back to this before it
or an original U.S. birth certificate or a U.S. passport, original passport. So these are generally the original documents you want to bring. Oh, also, if you guys have, either of you have previously been divorced, you need to bring in a certified copy of the divorce certificate.
See how
So
many
these are
things
the
they need
mandatory original documents you need
during
to bring, but every case is different.
interview.
If you submitted other evidence in support of your case and an original document exists, then you need to bring that original document and a photocopy. Let me give you an example. If you guys received holiday cards from